Hey guys, I'm glad that some of you are been listening to some of these little podcast type things we're doing here. It's given me a chance to introduce you to some of my friends and the people whose minds I admire. And I've been so isolated. It's great for me to be able to have these conversations. This one is my great friend and a bit of a mentor to me. His name is Zane Bardwick, and we recorded this very early in the morning. So for the first 10 minutes, I'm still waking up. I'm a little bit halting, but I get up to speed after a bit, and we have a very lively and I think enlightening conversation about all the things that are going on right now, how we feel about the political ramifications about this, and of course the economic stuff, and just the effect it's having on all of our personal lives as well. We get into all of that, so I think you'll really enjoy the conversation. This is a black screen. And Zane would rather remain anonymous because his job, he's very highly placed in a big company in Los Angeles, and who needs the hassles of any kind of political weirdness. Anyway, I hope you enjoy it, and I'm glad that you tuned in and saw the podcast or the interview that I did where there is a picture with Annie, our friend, and everybody seems to be really enjoying that one and falling in love with Annie, as we all do when we get to know her a little bit. She's a really great girl. So anyway, hope you all are enjoying these things, and I'll have a real regular video tomorrow. All right, take care. Welcome to the Blue Collar Podcast. I believe we are recording. And does it look like recording is going on at your end? I see it here. Sorry, we just had a false start here. I'd like to introduce you guys to my very good friend, Zane Bardwick. Some of you have known him from a post we did on the community page over at Blue Collar Logic and went ahead and friended him on Facebook. And I think it's okay with him if you do that. Is that okay with you?
Any friend of Dave's is a friend of mine.
Cool.
Until you piss me off, and then I'll yell at you. But I very rarely unfriend anybody.
Well, Zane had an awful lot to do with my moving from the left over to the right. My own I think it's more of a discovery of the fact that I was always a misplaced conservative. And in California, you just don't consider that possibility because it's, oh my God, I don't want to have those thoughts. Everyone will hate me. But he was the one guy that I knew that even inside of a musical creative community was able to be the man he is. And unfortunately now, because of times being what they are, it's better for him to go in anonymity. That's why we're using the black screen here, and it's more real podcasty. Anyway, I want to start off with just getting his take on some of this stuff. We now have 17 million people who have applied for unemployment. Los Angeles is claiming a 3.4% death rate. We only have, remember, there's it's a little over 300 deaths in a population. This is LA County, in a population of 10 million. And
so they have what's the percentage they're saying?
They're saying 3.4% death rate. What they mean is, of those very few people who have it, who come in, 3.4% of them die.
Not of the entire population.
Right. But
that's clever, isn't it?
But yes, and we all know very well by now that this disease is largely asymptomatic in younger people, and that a lot of people had something that they call the flu. Did you know anybody in the January or December that had a flu?
Oh yeah, I was talking to somebody I know yesterday. She and her husband, I remember this too. She's a colleague, and last December, she and her husband were deathly ill with what they thought was the flu. It may have been the flu, may have been this, who knows? But they got through it, and she's wondering now if she already had it. So there's been people that have been getting sick, I think, for a while now and getting better.
I suspect, given that we did not cut travel from China until, was it January 31st that we cut?
Yeah, I think that's right. Or maybe early February.
I checked the figures, and we have 1 million travelers a year coming in and out of Los Angeles, LAX, and from China. So that's people going back and forth. A lot of those are the same people going back and forth because of their jobs. Certainly, a lot of people come from Silicon Valley up north, go back and forth to China very regularly, and they have a lot of engineers who go back and forth to work on things over there and over here. And so it's not surprising to me that Santa Clara County is actually the hotspot in California, and that's the county that includes Silicon Valley.
Well, now, Dave, are you saying that because there's a high percentage of Asians working in the Santa Clara Valley, that perhaps that might be the reason that the virus, which started in China, might be heavier there? You racist! I cannot talk to you any longer.
I'm
Goodbye.
ashamed. I just wanted to come out and apologize to my family and to people who I've caused pain with my comment.
Your logic is offensive, and I just can't take it anymore.
Is there any way that you can forgive me out there, people? And I just want to let you know that all of my Asian friends are getting a fruit basket.
Yeah, yeah. Make sure it's organic, please. Make sure it's grown on the proper farms.
But of course, my point was that there's this crazy notion. You have to understand that the left worships New York as Mecca. They think of that as the Mecca, worldwide Mecca for liberalism. And so they believe that everything emanates in New York and then comes to California only later because, it has to get across the heartland where all the rubes try to stop it. But
Yeah.
that's not the way viruses work. If you've got a virus that was sourced in China for New York City, then certainly it was sourced in China for Los Angeles and has been here a long time. And of course, the main difference is they stand in elevators, in crowded elevators, and then go get on crowded subway cars to get home every evening and to come to work in the morning.
Or walk down streets where, even outside, where you are shoulder to shoulder.
Exactly. So it's the density factor, and fully a third of all deaths in the United States from COVID are New York City related. So they are New York City and its suburbs, which
Right.
happen to fall also into Bergen County, New Jersey, and into New Haven and one other county in Connecticut.
Because that's where all the people in Manhattan commute to when they go back home.
Absolutely. So that's really in the greater the tri-state area, right? Is that the tri-state area?
Yes, that is good. Very good for you. That's now we're going to teach you about the Metroplex.
Well, I'd like for you
and
to do that
Chicagoland. So.
because the first time this really hit home with me was a post that you made on social media, Zane. You had a very important meeting in New York, and it was that kind of the weekend when they shut everything down, and the NBA went down, and everything went down all at once. Hockey. What weekend was that? How long ago? It seems like a year and a half.
That was the middle of March. I was supposed to go on a trip to New York. I don't want to sound like a whiner, so I'm not going to whine too much. But I'm involved in a business that requires me to travel to New York once a year. And this particular year, because of the business I'm in, it just so happened it was a crucial meetings that I had set up in New York, and I've been planning on them for the better part of a year. I had strategies set up for the meetings that I was going to have. They were very much dependent on having face-to-face meetings with the people that I was going to meet with, and all of a sudden, everybody started panicking. And then the Friday before I was supposed to leave, that was Friday the 13th, is when actually it was the 12th, I believe, first, where Mayor de Blasio, and I say his name after taking a deep breath, where Mayor de Blasio basically shut everything down in New York City. And at that point, I had no choice, but because my employer just said, nope, you're not going. And it just destroyed all the plans that I'd made. The next day, the president declared the state of emergency on the 13th. And, but yeah, it really affected what I did. Now, I'm a resilient fellow, I think, and I have discovered Zoom, and I've learned a lot of the things that we've learned during all of this. I'm not,
Right.
I want to make sure that as we have this discussion, I don't think either of us think that we should just, walk out into the world and just be fancy free and not do anything to protect ourselves. I mean, I do believe in using the technology we have, and I've done that. Um, so I've managed to salvage some of the meetings I have by being able to have something like face-to-face meetings using, the video conferencing, but it's not the same. And it really ticked me off that uh, I remember listening to De Blasio's press conference that day. And
Hmm.
he is such a horrible human being. It was it was poorly done. First of all, he sat at that big desk. It looked like something. It looked like something out of the Politburo in like 1982. I mean, the video was bad. The desk was overly ornate, and he had people standing around him in the background. It looked and the way he spoke was so amateurish and so clearly designed to bash President Trump and bash the administration for not acting quick enough when just a couple of weeks before that he had been encouraging people to go out to restaurants and go socialize, go to sporting events, and now just a week and a half or 2 weeks later he's doing this. I was so angry that it was such a clearly political act. And then the next day, of course, then the president declared a national state of emergency, which I don't think was necessary, and I certainly don't. And then shortly thereafter, here in Los Angeles, the city of LA and then the county of LA imposed these draconian measures where everything is shut down. And anyway, I could go on about this for a long time, but it did affect me personally. But you know what? When I see how it has affected regular working people who have jobs, in bakeries, in hair salons, and in places that just the government just said, "Yep, you can't do that anymore." Those are the people I feel bad for, because in the business I'm in, my job has become much more busy because of this stupid thing.
So
It's kind of
so has
job
mine.
security for me, but I see all these millions of people who are out of work for what? For what? It's insane to me.
Uh, yeah, I agree. My job has not really slowed down either, and I'm with you on on the real worry, which is for all the tiny little businesses that the left pretends to love Main Street, right? This is all
Oh,
Main
yeah.
Street, and for instance, my where I get my haircut, it's a place where you get your haircut for $10. The
Mhm.
women who run it are a woman named Lynn, who is from Burma. She's my hair cutter, and a woman named Clara. Not Clara, but they pronounce it Clara,
Sure.
and she's from somewhere deep, deep in Mexico. And if you wanted to have a sort of multicultural experience, that barbershop is where you do it. They have actually have, and I'm not making it up. They actually have a transgendered Hispanic person actually cutting hair in there as well.
Awesome.
So it's a model of immigrants and people, who don't have much of a shot in this country, rising up and doing this. I started getting my hair cut by Lynn when she worked at another shop. Got a plane going overhead. I hope it doesn't bother us too much. You hearing it at all? Um, and they worked for another place. And then after about 15 years ago or something, they got together, they saved up their money, and they opened their own salon. And now they are teetering on the brink of being out of business entirely.
Disaster.
It,
They're on the brink of disaster.
they're on the brink of disaster. They may never get this business, and they've built families. Lynn has had 2 children during this period of time, and she travels back and forth to Burma once a year to see her family. And she just recently went on a religious trip. She's a Buddhist. She recently went on a religious trip. I mean, these people are what we're talking about when we talk about the American dream vis-a-vis immigrants.
Yes. This is the thing that just when I hear these stories, Dave, what you just described is the leftists' dream of America, right?
Yeah.
It's multicultural, it's multi-gendered, quote unquote little people who are actually the biggest people in the world in my book, who actually got off their ass, did something for themselves, took a risk, and went into business for themselves. And now an arbitrary iron fist of government has come in and said, no, you can't do that anymore. You can't make your own decision on how to run your own business to allow your own customers to make their decision as to whether they want to patronize you or not. You're no longer living in a free country. You have to shut down your business. That is criminal. That is beyond unconstitutional or anything else. That is the antithesis of a free society. That's incredibly evil in my book.
Oh, I agree with you totally. And it's really, I mean, you and I both know a lot of people who are on the left. And in one of our starts before we got the thing plugged in properly, you were saying that it bothers you very much that a small number of people who really enjoy political power and are seeing some advantages to be had from this vis-a-vis the coming election and just generally vis-a-vis their ability to impose more and more power, to impose their powers as government. Most of our friends who belong to that party and vote with these people buy this entirely. They buy it entirely, and they are being manipulated through their own kindness.
Right. That's the thing. This is a completely cynical move here. If this were, and I hate to say this, but look, I'm not a Republican or a Democrat. I don't belong to any party. Okay. But, and I'm going to be honest. I did not vote for Donald Trump in 2016. I did not vote for either of the two major candidates in 2016. But what I see here, and I also think that both political parties have a lot of corruption, and that either one of them would be taking advantage of the situation in some way or another if there were a different if there were a Democrat in the White House right now. But I have never, ever, ever seen, I have to say, with all my problems with Donald Trump, I'm going to enthusiastically vote for him this time, mostly because of the absolute insane effort to throw him out of office by using whatever means necessary. And this is the most obvious part. I mean, I thought that the whole Russian thing, it became much more and more obvious over time. I thought that was pretty obvious. This is the greatest. They tried everything. It didn't work. It was clear. It all ended up all falling apart. And it's just, and they you can't get our friends on the left to see what an obvious a political move it was. Well, here, this is a bad virus. It's a bad virus. It's going to kill a lot of people. But if this were, say, Barack Obama in office right now, they would not be They would not be supporting shutting down anything the way they are right now.
Of course not.
And so when I saw this, the press conference with Bill de Blasio when he shut everything down, that was when I just saw it was just like it was talk about an elephant in the room. It was like sitting on his lap. There was a big fat elephant sitting on his lap because you could see what he was doing. This is an opportunity that fell into the lap of Democrats who want to get power back, and they have manipulated good people, including a lot of good people in government, to buy into this nonsense. Just, what I love seeing is that now, Andrew Cuomo in New York, who, a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, was, holding forth every day, telling the nation, as he's shadow running for president, he's going and he's saying, our hospitals are going to be overrun. We're not going to have enough ventilators. We're going to have hundreds of thousands of people that are going to be infected and dying. And I mean, he was seriously saying this stuff. Right. And you and I were saying, wait, what? I mean, even this is the place in the country where it's the worst. And he was saying all this horrible stuff. Now, just like yesterday or the day before, in his press conference, he's sitting there and he's much more calm. He's much more circumspect. And he's saying, well, you know what? No, we're peaking at our hospitals never were really overrun. We had enough equipment, we had enough supplies, you know, and nobody is saying anything about
Because
that.
now what he's doing is he is repositioning himself as good governor
Yeah,
who, so he's gone from victim governor who, oh my God, I've done everything humanly possible to prepare, but I didn't know the bubonic plague was going to
yeah,
slam into our side. And oh, this president, oh, it's the federal government dropped the step. And now that it's proving to not be as great as it was, even in our hottest of hot
yeah,
spots, now he wants to reposition himself as the governor who amazingly headed it off at the pass.
yeah. Andrew Cuomo fixed it. Andrew Cuomo stopped COVID-19
He
in New
did.
York City.
And
You know, I
he
can see the
saved
ad
the
now.
rest of the country. He saved
Yeah,
the rest of the
yeah,
country from getting it because,
yeah.
of course, it wasn't as if Kansas was allowed to go on with their business or Utah, where there's absolutely, Wyoming, 4 cases. Shut
Right.
it down.
Yeah,
For God,
shut the whole thing down. Well,
what
you
kind
see,
of monster would keep their economy open?
here in LA County, it's really bad. I mean, starting today, we're recording this on April 15th, or no, 14th. I think starting tomorrow, the 15th, is when we're all required in LA County now to wear masks when we go outside,
Yes.
under fear of fine or imprisonment. And that's bad enough. But I'm reading in some of these states, the governor of Michigan has apparently gotten so ridiculous that I can't even remember what I heard today. I did hear like in Mississippi there was a mayor, I think, in one of the towns in Mississippi that just I guess I can be graphic here. One of these little dick, you know assholes who just he smells power decides to impose it. He shut down all religious services in his city, and over the weekend, the cops came and shut down a drive-in church service where everybody was in their cars with the windows rolled up, and they
Yes.
shut it down and
Listening
made
to it on the
everybody go
radio,
home.
right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yes, this is absolutely insane. Well, I posted a little thing on Facebook yesterday. I had been I got up early. I went to the market so I could get bread before it was sold out. And I went to one of the little markets in my neighborhood, which is called Grocery Outlet. It's one of the 4 markets, including a Walmart in Duarte, California, that I've been monitoring. So I visit all of these things at least once a week to talk to the employees and ask if there's been any virus in there. And all 4 to this point, all through the toilet paper apocalypse, all through the heavy crowding that went on in these markets, nobody got sick. And you cannot get 6 feet away from your checker when you are putting your card into the machine. You are 3 feet away from your checker at most. The width of that little conveyor belt, right?
yeah.
So,
By the way, what you're doing by doing that, you're doing a great service. And if anybody listening to this doesn't subscribe to Blue Collar, I'm going to give you a plug here. If anybody listening to this does not yet subscribe to Blue Collar Logic, you should, because Dave is doing really good field work here that a lot of us can't do. And if you listen to his personal experience, he's going to 4 different stores in 4 different locations, relatively near him, but still far enough away to get a good sample. And what you're saying about these stores and the experience with these employees is the most compelling evidence I have heard. Forget all the models
because that's where all the people were.
that's where real people are doing real stuff.
Yeah, and in fact, we were funneling the population into these places because we weren't allowing them to go anywhere smaller. So what we did is we put them, because all of the neighborhood bodegas were closed. So what happens is you have all these people running through there. They were not masked. None of the employees of any of these places was masked until this week, till just a few days ago. And there was no COVID that happened there. And people come from miles and miles around to go through these places and breathe on these employees.
Yeah,
And
right.
it didn't happen. But anyway, I went there yesterday morning, and I pulled into the parking lot, and there was about 15 or so cars there. It's not a huge parking lot at this particular market, but they were parked every other space. There was social distancing between the cars.
Oh, you've got to be
People were
kidding.
parking rather than parking close by the door like they always would. They were spread out with the one parking space between. and everybody's been telling me they see people driving down the street. They've got their masks on inside their cars with the windows rolled up, so they don't catch COVID from themselves.
Oh, Dave,
They're
that's
all
just that's
alone in
I
the
mean,
car.
and you know what? There's so much about this whole thing that is just doesn't make any sense. And nobody is paying attention to how senseless everything is. I'm going to tell you, yesterday I had to go to the doctor. I had foot surgery last October. Foot's all healed now. Everything's great. I'm seeing my doctor like every 6 weeks just to have him check on my foot. And he works in a building, and he has an office in a building in town here where I live. That's owned. The building is owned by a large medical company, a medical provider. He's a tenant there. He's not part of that organization. He just rents a space from this large medical group.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so my wife and I, Mrs. Bardwick, and I show up to this building yesterday, and there's a long line to get in. And we see, oh, they're taking everybody's temperature to get in, right? I thought, okay, you know what? I can see that. And why not? I'd love to know what my temperature is. Why not? For free? They just quickly take your temperature? Hey, why not? So we wait in line. We wait in line. We wait in line. Almost late for my appointment, but we wait in line. Get to the front of the line. And by the way, they're making everybody get into the line. Nope. You have to get in the line if you want to get in. Get to the front of the line, and they say, okay, who's your appointment with? And I say, give them the name of my doctor. And she looks at me like, who's that? And I said, well, he's up on the second floor I gave him the name of the practice. I gave him the name of the doctor's office. She goes, oh, he's not with us. So you can just go on up. Well, you're going to take my temperature, right? Oh, no, we're only taking the temperature of the people that are going to our suites. So I'm being allowed to go into the building, the same building everybody else is going into.
Right.
They're not taking my temperature. I could be sick as a dog. They don't know because I'm not with their company who owns the building, which that's the kind of senselessness that goes on right now.
Yeah, you know our mutual friend, Michelle Stoltz.
Oh, yeah.
She's a really funny person. But she was telling a story. She was going someplace, and they were taking her temperature every time she went there.
Yes,
and it was a regular place, and they were
like
shooting.
a store.
They were shooting it, and it was coming out 94 degrees. And she says, well, that can't be right. And so she went home and checked her own temperature, and it was right in the middle of where it should be, 98.6.
Yeah.
And so she went back a couple of days later, 94 again. So basically what they're doing is they've got a faulty thermometer, and they could be letting people in with all kinds of fever.
Well, so let's see. If
4 degrees.
What's 98 plus 4 degrees? That would be 102.
Right.
So they could be letting people in with 102 degree temperature.
And so whoever it is that's operating the thermometer is thinking, isn't it weird how everybody who comes here is 4 degrees too cold? Finally, we got a normal one. It was 98 degrees, and they just let somebody in with 100.
Yeah, with 102 degree temperature.
I mean, this is the level of screening that's going on.
It's just based on the fact that here's what's happening. I know what I look. I work in this world, so I know this. What this company that runs this office building that I was in yesterday, what they're doing is that they've got lawyers advising them, we have to do this to avoid liability. Okay. And they're looking at it in a telescopic way where they're not thinking, what about the other people that come into the building that are with other tenants that aren't with our company? Because they're just focusing on fear. They're focusing on the fear of litigation. Everything about this is driven by fear, by people, by the government and the people who want this to happen this way being afraid of something. The lawyers are afraid of liability. You and I, our neighbors, are afraid of being contaminated, of getting sick. Everybody's afraid.
And politicians are using that fear in order to panic the masses. They're using the fear that both of the fears you mentioned, and they themselves are operating out of fear of Donald Trump, fear of losing power, fear of this somehow their dream of a mighty centralized government not coming to pass. And so and then the governors from the red states and politicians in general, GOP politicians in general, are operating largely out of fear that if they don't come on board with it, including the president. If they don't come on board with it, they won't be reelected and they'll lose it entirely to this big government. So everybody
Right.
is fearful right now.
Right. And the president has to. I saw him the other day, and for the first time in my life, you know, I'm not a big fan of him personally.
Hmm.
I like about, I don't know, 50% of the policies he's enacted have been pretty great. And so, you know, again, I'm going to vote for him enthusiastically this time. But I personally, I don't care for him that much. But for the first time the other day, I felt sorry for him because he was calm and rational and absolutely honest. You could see it in his face when he said, I have to make the toughest decision of my life right now about reopening the country.
Right.
And he knows it. He knows that it's the toughest decision. He can feel it. And it's more than just a political thing. It is a, am I really going to be doing the right thing? I think he really is worried about it, but he has to. I think that if he's going to win this fall, and I think he has to, because it's not, Joe Biden is not going to be the nominee. We'll talk about this at some other time, but Joe Biden is not going to be the Democratic nominee. I think everybody who has any brains at all understands that. They're going to
Yes.
put a strong candidate up against Trump this fall.
Right.
If President Trump wants to win, he's going to have to be bold. He's going to have to be as bold as he has been on some of the legislative things he's decided in this last 3 years. He's going to have to basically put his foot down, take the heat, reopen the economy as much as he can. I mean, most of it is up to the local governors, but as much as he can with the federal government, make sure that we're open for business again and take the heat. Take the heat if there's any additional people who get sick, because that might happen. But open the country again and get the economy going, because if we wait another month, Dave, I think we're going to be in real trouble. I think we can recover pretty quickly if we open up soon, but it's got to be soon. And he's got to make a decision quickly and
Well,
absolutely be bold.
for those of us who haven't seen his press conferences in the last couple of days, what is his take on the reopening? Because I just got burned out and haven't watched in 3 or 4 days. So is he now talking about actively opening up again?
He's talking about the choices that he has to make. He's being very, here's the word again, circumspect. Okay. He's being circumspect in a real way. He's not, I think he is on the verge of, or let me put it this way. I think he's making a personal decision for the first time in his life. He's actually thinking about, what if I do what I really want to do and tell Dr. Fauci to go pound sand? That's what he wants to do, I think. But I don't think I think he's worried that if he does that, it could be disastrous for him and the country. So I think he's absolutely teetering, and I hope that soon he finally just says, you know what, Dr. Fauci, you're fired. Thank you for your service. Go and say whatever you want to say separately, but we're not going to be listening to models and to people, and you've made this point, Dave, to scientists and doctors who don't have to worry about their jobs, who can sit back and look at these models and declare to everybody, oh, it's going to be another 18 months, that kind of nonsense. Right. They don't have to worry about being unemployed. He needs to say that, and he needs to say, we're gonna be Americans, and we're gonna take the risks that are inherent in this kind of a pandemic, and we're going to be sensible, and we're going to take care of each other, and we're going to open our fucking businesses. And he needs to do that.
Yes, and there is this human trait at play here. It's always at play, always everywhere, is that everybody wants to believe that what they're doing is important and rarely have that opportunity for others to think it's important. So when you get your hands on something that could possibly make you a historic figure, as opposed to just some bureaucrat who worked in a health organization somewhere, you tend to, even no matter how good a person you are, you tend to milk it for what it's worth. And I think Fauci is a man, he's certainly well past retirement age. I think he's 78 or 79. He's about the age of a normal candidate for president in the Democratic Party, around in there somewhere. So, and he's like all those candidates, there's a certain desperation to go into the history books before you go into the graveyard. And he has not he does not have a great record on, particularly. I was listening to Dr. Drew Pinsky. I don't know, some of you out there might not know who Dr. Drew is, but he is a doctor who came out of this area. He so happens that he was the son of my own family doctor, and he went on to a radio show and a bunch of other things. And he hangs out with Adam Carolla a lot. And so if you're a Carolla fan, you know who Dr. Drew is. But he was talking about Fauci, and it just so happens that he worked with Fauci when he was chief resident. Dr. Drew was just out of med school. He was chief resident at Huntington Hospital here in Pasadena. And Fauci was an advisor that he used for the virology part of the training, because he was a resident himself, but was training other residents. He was the chief resident, so he would bring him in to address people, and they got to be friends. And he said, quite frankly, he's a Fauci supporter, but he said, during the AIDS epidemic, Fauci missed it by orders of magnitude. He thought it was going to sweep across the country and kill millions of Americans, and he missed it so widely. And this is what a guy like that, if he looks at a thing, he doesn't want people to die, but he also wants to be significant. And if you're battling a giant threat, like if somebody found something that looks an awful like a spaceship near your house somewhere, and you're the one that spotted the spaceship, you want it now to be a spaceship. It might really just be an old wash tub out there in the swamp,
Right.
but a spaceship makes you more in your group of friends. You're going to be more heroic if it's a spaceship. So everyone is biased toward their own self-importance, is what I'm saying. And I think that I don't think that Fauci and Birx are immune to this syndrome.
No, no, they're not. But also, there's this, unfortunately, and this particularly permeates the left, but it also affects everybody. Is this idea that trust the science, believe the quote unquote science, and science, and I'm putting that in quotes, the term science is spoken as almost as a religion, as a, or even, well, as a religion, but unlike a religion, not something that you're supposed to just have faith in, something that you are supposed to just believe in because it's science. It's not wishful thinking. It is a fact. It is based on test results and models and things that people write down on paper and put into computers, and you're supposed to believe it because it's quote unquote science, as if you don't take into account the way people behave. I mean, look at what's happening right now. If you would listen to the scientists, to the science, Dr. Fauci, a few weeks ago, there would be millions of people infected right now across the country. I mean, just absolutely, we would be devastated, because he was saying it was the peak, which it is peaking now. It's peaking at the time he said it would peak. I'll give him that much.
Yeah.
But the numbers that he gave were astronomical. Did not take into account any of the behaviors that people engage in. That's the thing about this faith in science. It takes the soul out of everything. You're not supposed to calculate the human soul, for lack of a better term. That, whether you believe in souls or not, there is something about humanity that transcends pure science, the pure models.
Right. And the one science that people on the left can be counted on to discount is the science that studies human nature. They're not interested, even though they are. This always bothers me so much, because I myself am not a religious man, and I'm way into understanding evolutionary psychology. So everything you'll hear me talk about, it always has to do with tribal dynamics and how people, that delivered me eventually to a conservative life view, because I realize that men and women are different, that dominance hierarchies are necessary, that people will behave in given ways, and they have to be properly motivated in order to come to their best, and that happens through the pressure of the tribe, the survival instinct that you have by not being being rejected by the tribe. So to move on past that, but that delivers you to these things that I'm talking about, that males and females are different for biological reasons, for evolutionary reasons. So this can coexist fine with religion, because whatever we are biologically, we could also have a spiritual aspect, but we are
Right.
biologically these things. And the left wants to pretend that we are not in any way biological. As any look at any superhero movie or spy movie now, you will show you've got a 5'3", 115-pound woman kicking ass on guys the size of
Oh
refrigerators.
God.
And
Oh
these ideas are not just stupid, they're dangerous,
yeah.
because you go into legislation with no understanding of human nature. So they
Yeah.
believe in everything that science tells them except that. And so that when you go to say, okay, I'm going to accept that the world is getting marginally warmer, and that the seas are getting marginally higher, you don't think about, okay, what's the human nature of this? How do people deal with this? Do people stand by the ocean going, oh no, in Bangladesh or something, going, oh no, my ankles are always wet, I better buy some platform shoes? No, they move. They move inland. It takes
Yes.
place over a long period of time, or they build seawalls that later
Yes.
turn into a system of dikes, as we've seen in the Netherlands.
Yeah.
They've been below sea level for hundreds of
No,
years.
right, but they because what the left what the left all of this stuff, the people, I love the people who say they fucking love science, right? Yeah, yeah, they fucking love science unless it science leads to a conclusion that is not humans are bad, humans are horrible for the earth,
Right.
and we need to impose socialism um, so that success um, and personal responsibility and ingenuity are cramped, are absolutely stomped upon. That's what it's about. That's what all of
Right.
this is about. Is that the people who are telling us that that climate change is a human manifestation, and it's particularly a manifestation of capitalism. That right there it just tells you right there that this is not about climate. This is about a hatred of capitalism, hatred of freedom, and a hatred of the idea of small l libertarianism, the idea that each human is their own individual who has the ability and responsibility, if they want to take it, to form communities in their own enlightened self-interest. And that's what it's all about, is that it's a hatred of individualism. And because these people want to be controlled, and but moreover, they want to control, they want to see the people they don't like, they want to see the individuals, the people that actually go out and do things, the successful people, they want to see them fail. And that's what what's
Unless they
happening with this pandemic is all about.
Right. Unless they vote with them.
Right.
Because, right,
Yeah.
you could almost look at this thing and say, is this some sort of plot between Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, and Google? Because all of their stuff, and Zoom, the people who run Zoom, they're in on the plot. They're this these are giant corporate entities that are booming because of this. Facebook, all the stuff that's online, they're booming because of this. And I'm not really suggesting this. I'm
Right.
just saying, by way of, while they're stomping out the businesses of mom and pop and my hair cutters
Yeah.
and yours,
By the
they
way, Dave,
are.
you need a haircut. So
I
do
know.
I.
They are greatly benefiting these giant corporations that they
Yes.
claim not
Yeah.
to trust.
Yeah.
And
Right.
all of the corporations will slide through this somehow, because they have these deep reserves of money.
Mhm.
That's how they got to be big corporations. So they will be able to sneak through it. The oil companies,
Yeah.
and the people that'll be killed are the small businesses. So there's no there's no consistency in how they think, because they are driven by this hatred that you're talking about, and also this deep need to control others.
Yeah. Yeah.
that is really something that you see, I think, more on the left than on the right,
Oh,
because it
absolutely.
is a collectivist uh, organization to begin with. And if you are so, even though they say they they ignore the psychology of, for instance, an economy. I mean, there's a psychology to an economy. It's mainly a psychology. And if you recast people's relationship to the economy as, instead of being participants to the greatest degree you can, and that's a type of heroism. We think that way on the right. We think that the best thing you can do is go out and make money for yourself. Then therefore you are not dependent on your neighbors. You
Right.
are not dependent on government help, and you're producing wages that go into paying the pool for those who tragically cannot take care of themselves. So we see it that way, and they're turning this into, like, the time of greatest heroism was when everyone didn't participate in the economy,
Right.
as if that's somehow heroic. And that's what they've been trying to portray to us through all this Green New Deal and everything else, that the best way to handle the economy is to withdraw from it.
Right. And to withdraw from it, and to make sure that anybody that that does try to succeed on their own is crushed and
Yes, and
and
becomes wards of
subjugated
the state.
and subjugated. Yeah, I mean the dichotomy is tragic. Where they will say to the small business, like the folks that run the hair salon that you talked about,
Hmm.
they will say to those people, "This is America. You need an opportunity. You need to be given an opportunity to compete with everybody else." And most small businesses, like the ones you're talking about, are essentially, they're not saying this literally, but they're essentially saying "fuck you" to those people. They're saying, "I can do this myself. I don't need the government to do it. I'll go and just do it myself." And the liberal mind cannot stand that. They cannot stand that. What they want now, and what they're doing now, and the dichotomy here is that once this happens, once this wonderful opportunity happens now, and they are all, and it's an opportunity for the government to force them out of business. Now they can say, "You poor little guy, you poor little guy. Look what Donald Trump did to you by not by making this pandemic come to our country, and when he could have prevented it. Look at what he did. And now the government's gonna. We need the government to take care of you now. You poor little guy." That is what is most infuriating to me.
Yeah, and
That
they won't be able to connect the dots, because it is so. It is now, over the last course of the last 20 years or so, and why I left the Democratic Party is because I understood that I'm not allowed to disagree. I'm not allowed to disagree with the people that I vote with,
Yep.
and there are a lot of people have to stay off a situation like this who are conservatives in Los Angeles, because they're afraid they'd lose their jobs and their friend groups and whatever. So when you are not, when you look at any issue that's coming up and we're going to decide it as a people, say gay marriage or the Green New Deal, whatever it would be, going to change our lives in a particular way or change our culture in a particular way. And you look at it, and it's like the left decides amongst themselves over the course of a couple of years what they think about it. And then at some point it hits critical mass. And from that day forward, and I mean literally from that day forward, there is a new language that comes out of it. A new things are called a new thing, and the language just sweeps through the whole school of fish. And then everybody must follow that or be seen as not just a laggard, but an enemy.
An enemy,
And
and
right,
this is precisely what people like Orwell predicted.
yes,
That's the brilliance of people like Orwell, that they saw it early on. They saw it, close, 70, 80 years
right,
ago. They saw, oh well, what's the natural progression of this line of
right.
thinking,
And of
and that's
course,
exactly where we are.
then what happens is it becomes then perilous to think, because
Yes.
you can't, because you have only, if say I tell you a new thing that the left is saying, and you're a
Mhm.
leftist and all your friends are leftists, and your wife is a deep Democrat, and all your friends are Democrats, and they all hate Donald Trump. So it comes up, you can't get any percentage out of thinking long and hard about it, because it, if you're going to want to preserve your family and friends, you can only come to a single conclusion that's already been told to you what it is.
Mhm.
So if you think through it, you end up with this sense of, oh my God, I'm living a lie because I don't really think this way. And
Yep.
that's what happened to me. I was living a lie. I was going ahead with all my friends, and they would talk about all this stuff, and I'd kind of nod along and try to change the subject. And I realized I'm just lying to everybody so that I don't lose all my friends. And
Yep.
finally, I made the move and lost all my friends.
But you know, the ones that are real friends either stuck with you or are coming back. I mean,
Yes.
that's the beauty of trying to be as honest as you can. You know, I have, as we talked about before. I mean, Zane Bardwick's not my real name.
It
I have
isn't?
I have a job, and you know, the people on Facebook who friend me on Facebook, if they want to know my real identity, I tell them. I don't really hide it. I do it for completely selfish reasons because I have a job that, you know, politically I don't want to alienate professional colleagues because you're not really allowed. It's really actually you're really not allowed to have most political opinions, left or right. But if you do have an opinion, it really can only be a left wing opinion. The only opinions I've ever heard, political opinions in mixed company in my professional groups, have been left wing ideas. So I try to just manage my. I mean, I'm not hiding. I'm not disguising my voice now. Anybody who knows me knows who this is. But it's still you have to be careful if you want. You're absolutely right. You have to be careful because it becomes dangerous to your ability to have a job, to or just to function in society. And it's really sad, it's really terrible that happens.
And
And
when
we
you
didn't used to be that way. Didn't used you know
right.
Mrs. Bardwick is what I would call a Kennedy Democrat. Okay.
Mhm.
And she doesn't, she doesn't follow the news much. She doesn't understand a lot of what's going on now. And she doesn't understand that when I talk about the Democratic Party now in 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 the terms that I discuss it, that I'm talking about a different party than she thinks it is, because she's like most people. Most people want to get on with their lives and just have a good life and not think about this thing. They, she I think she really believes that the Democratic Party mostly consists of the people that her mom knew. Her mom was a staunch Democrat.
Right.
And I just, and it's a sad problem, because if you don't follow what's going on, unfortunately, you're gonna get washed up in it, and before you know it, you're going to be losing
Well, it
freedom.
and it has so morphed from, I like to say that the people who are in government in your area were the people who like hung around with the teachers in high school, and you'd see them walking through the halls and they'd be chatting away with the teachers, and maybe they wore a tie, they dressed up like adults. And
Yeah.
in the case of a Republican, they were probably a you know did had ran a prayer meeting at church or whatever.
Right.
They gravitate toward leadership roles. And let's face it, any leadership role is, in a sense, a role where you are asked by the people to control them. So, if you are say you're a rock star or something
Yeah.
like that, like the Beatles looking out in the audience going, we can't even hear ourselves on stage
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
we've got 15-year-olds screaming and fainting. It's like, the downside of being a leader is you tend to surround yourself or be surrounded by followers. So
Right.
it takes a little bit of the joy out of it. But so y- a Republican, though, what they want to do, the idea they're leading is to that, yes, I will fight for you legislatively, but I am not trying to get into your mind. I'm not there.
Right.
That's a place for your God and your family and your community, like you were referring to. But with the Democrats, they want your mind. They want to control you so that so that there's no ripple of chaos going through the flock of birds as it tries to cut through the air. It
Right.
needs to be cohesive.
Eh,
If we're
eh,
going to do anything as a group, there is no more free will inside the Democratic Party than there is for a private in boot camp. you must, when given orders, you must jump together because it's a matter of life and death in the military, and it's a matter of your social life and your job if you're in the Democrats.
Right.
You will jump. I say jump, you ask, sir, yes, sir, how high?
Yeah. Right.
You know?
And that's, and unfortunately, I mean, and I think it's just, for me, it's important to be clear about this. When you say Democrats and Republicans, I say liberals and conservatives, or, because as I said, my wife's an example of this. There's a lot of people who belong to the Democratic Party that are not, that don't fall in line with that. I know Mrs. Bardwick right now is having a lot of problems with some of her friends who do buy into that, into
Right.
what you were just talking about. She doesn't understand it. She just, it's confusing to her, because, and she just doesn't, it doesn't compute. So
Right.
I think that there are plenty of people in the Republican Party who say I don't belong to any party. Parties tend to be, they're all, it's all political calculation in one
Right.
form or another. But the ideology you're talking about is exactly right. And the
It's
and the
just that the
difference is,
ideology gets
um,
polluted by the perks that are
by
available to
two
people.
politicians, right? But what you were saying is about not being able to disagree. Okay, what I fear, and I don't want, and then what in the current environment, what I don't want to have happen among people who call themselves conservatives is to have that happen, where, where you, because the thing I like about dealing with you and all the people who I call real conservatives that I know, is that I can disagree with you on a point here, a point there, but we can agree to disagree on certain things. That doesn't happen among the folks on the left. You can't, like you say, you're not allowed to.
Right,
You
and
have to stand up in unison, and
that is the
I don't want
definition.
that to
Right.
happen. I don't want that to happen
Right,
on
and
the right.
that's the natural breakdown of an ideology that declares itself to be an ideology for and of individuals,
Right.
and one that declares itself to be an ideology for and of the collective.
Right.
And there is no doubt in my mind that the Democrats are using that collectivist urge that is in all people. And because of our tribal roots, and because our roots in towns and cities, and I mean, it's you look at it and you say, well, we got if you fly over the United States and look out the window, as you've done many times, you look at it, this place is vacant. There is like
It is.
nobody home for
Right.
so much of the country.
Right.
And but there you get over the cities, and people they can't find a parking place. It
Right.
costs a tremendous amount to live there, and they go to the cities anyway. There is this urge in people to be around other people.
Sure.
And this is one of the things that's being monkeyed with right now, for almost like they're working some sort of experiment on us. Like, so we did this
That's
thing.
exactly right. I think
Right.
that's exactly what that is, what
Uh,
it's turned into,
well,
an experiment. That's
yes,
right.
and so first we did what they called social distancing, and then a lot of people tried to change that term to physical distancing. It didn't catch; it stayed social distancing. But you remember a couple of weeks ago, people were going, "Let's call it physical distancing," because they didn't
Right.
want to think that they didn't want the everyone to know I'm being distanced from my own social life. But this
Right.
is what is happening. They are distancing you
It-
from your social life. Let me figure. Let me take this a step further. But what is true of the humans, and the collectivists, ironically, know this the best, is that people need to be in a group of other people that they're interacting with on all kinds of different levels in order to be psychologically healthy.
Yep.
So, what we're having now is we're having spiritual distancing. We're being taken apart from all of those things that make us into unique and interesting and healthy human beings. We're
Yep.
being denied access to them.
Yep. And this is so important. We are being marinated in the idea that, as you say, that word social is so important, because now when you're in the supermarket, or when you're in line, I experienced it yesterday when I was waiting in that line to I thought I was going to get my temperature taken. It, if you forget and get an inch too close to somebody, they
Someone
will
barks
look
at
at
you.
you. They will look at you like, like you're going to kill them.
Right,
And they will yell at you. They will tell you, oh, back, you need to be 6 feet, 6 feet, 6 feet.
right,
They will do that kind of thing, and you're no longer a person anymore. You can't just
right.
walk down the street and say hi, so, like, good morning to people. It's if I've actually experienced this, when I'm walking down the street and I say good morning to somebody that I pass, they actually move away from me and don't say anything to me. They just
Yeah,
keep
and they
they
don't
keep walking.
they don't mean any harm by it.
No,
They are preserving their health, and they may believe that they also are preserving your health if
they're afraid.
they're afraid. But now we have added the whole extra layer, and I came out a couple weeks ago with my mask video about saying, or
Mhm.
whenever that was, that let's wear the masks and open the government and
Yeah.
not open the government, excuse me, open the economy.
Thank
Open
you.
the
Yeah.
government, government's open.
Yeah.
uh, let's wear the
Boy, is it
masks
ever.
for that purpose. Let's all have a jug of Purell on our desk for that purpose of getting back to work.
Yeah.
Well, at that point, Anthony Fauci was saying every day, "Nah, they don't do you any good. They don't do any good. Forget it. It's a waste of time." And
Yeah.
now everybody must wear a mask or be subject to some sort of fine.
Yeah.
And so what's now happening is what little humanity we had left vis-a-vis our smiles and our eyes are now being blocked up. All day long yesterday when I was out doing different things, well, yesterday and the day before I was out doing things, and I wore my mask the whole time because I'm doing it because I'm going to walk into a thing and I don't want to be scolded. "Oh, you have to wear a mask in here, sir."
Yeah.
Drive all the way there and go, "Yeah, I can't get in," So people will then comply. They don't want to be scolded. So everybody I interact with, I walk by and I go, "Hi, good morning" to somebody, and I'll say, "By the way, I'm smiling."
Yeah.
And they'll
That's
laugh and
good.
they'll go, "I'm
That's
smiling
good.
too." And
That's good.
so I'm
And but you
determined.
need to work on it. That's it. That you're working at it, right? Thank God.
Exactly.
That's God bless you. That's good. You're working at it. You're actually making people realize, oh, hey, I'm a person in here, and that's a person over there, which is good. That's a good idea. I should do that too. Everybody should do that.
Yeah, that do that. It gets a great response because everyone
Yeah.
feels that way. Everyone,
Yeah.
it's first happened to me the other day when I was in Super King getting ready. I made a big chicken soup here at the house, and
Oh
that's
yeah, you posted a picture of it. It
yeah,
looked
yeah.
good.
And so I was over there and it was pretty. Super King is one of the places that's been pretty crowded. It's mainly immigrants that very few English speaking people who shop there. A lot of the Armenian community shops in there. It's generally very crowded. It's less crowded now because it's just a little bit less crowded, but they're not letting people in like every other supermarket where they only let a few people in at a time. They're not doing that. Most everybody is wearing a mask, and I was reaching over this woman's cart, or I asked her to get out of the way so I could get this salt off the shelf. I needed salt, and this little child was sitting in the shopping cart as they do with their legs hanging out the front, and this little baffled little kid had a surgical mask on, and so I looked at the little girl and I go, kind of hard to smile at somebody with that mask on, isn't it? And her mom goes, and you could see she smiled because her eyes lit up. And I
Right.
was six
Right.
feet away from her, trust me.
Right. Yeah.
But after since that point on, every time I see somebody, I'm reminding them that I am smiling.
That's
I'm
a really good
smiling to
idea.
see you.
I need to do that because otherwise we all just become faceless.
We do.
We become faceless, and we are antisocial, and that's really dangerous. Well, Dave, I've got to leave in I have to do my job soon. I have to about 15 minutes. I have to get on another video conference. But thank you for having me on. I hope we can do this every once in a while because I need to vent. I can't do it during most of my day, or unless I'm on Facebook and then I post a rant here or there. But
Well, do you have time to answer one question from me?
absolutely,
You posted a thing the other day that may be apocryphal. We don't know, but it was a meme that said on some date was it the 1st of May or whatever it
oh
is,
right, right,
that
right.
we're asking everybody who wants to get the economy, going again and has had about enough of this stuff to gather in groups in parks or whatever.
Yeah, basically a mass march, a global mass march. I posted it because I thought, not necessarily because I agree with it, but what I was saying in my original post was, I think this is the kind. I don't know if this is real or not, but I think this is the kind of thing that's going to happen,
Well,
and
that's
it
what my
resulted in
question.
more.
Are
Yeah.
you feeling a sort of rebellion mounting?
Yes, absolutely. And nobody wants. Last night I went out to dinner. We went out and we didn't go out to dinner. You can't go out to dinner anymore. I went out to get some takeout at a restaurant that's a big restaurant, Mexican restaurant here in town. and it's normally packed. But I ordered takeout over the phone. I went to go pick it up. I wore my mask, and I walked into this place, and there's nobody there. My food was ready, man. I was the only order, right? It was they were just bringing it out. But I looked inside the restaurant, and there was, I'm sure it was the franchise owner, the owner of the restaurant, right? And three of his buddies, just no masks, just sitting around drinking beers. Yeah, they were obviously all, three sheets to the wind. I think that that there's going to be a point where it reaches critical mass and something's going to happen. And one of the things that I talked about in that thread, because you and another correspondent on that thread had two separate things, basically, where the one guy said, well, I think conservatives just don't go on marches, and I think he's right about that. I
Exactly.
just don't think that's something we don't do. But then you said, there's got to be some way that the conservatives can act. And I was thinking, I think you're both right. And I think maybe what the answer will be at some point will be that the rebellion, if there's going to be civil disobedience, it'll be more like, okay, everybody, on such and such a date, everybody's reopening their business. If you want to really protest, just go ahead and risk going to jail. Sure. But open your business, open your hair salon, open your bakery, open your business, and just go back to work and see what happens. And if enough people do that, I mean, it has to reach a critical mass where enough people are sick of this bullshit that they do it, where the police are not going to be able to arrest everybody that does it. In fact, some of the policemen might actually go in and get a fucking haircut. It's like, I just think there is a huge undercurrent that is about ready to explode. And if it goes much longer, I mean, they're now saying in LA County or May 15th, which is ridiculous. If it goes much beyond that, people are going to have just say that's enough and do something. And I just hope it's something that's reasonable and not crazy.
I do too, and there are signs that a lot of governors who are beginning to work with the governors of their the states closest to them are beginning to have meetings with them. I think one of the things that may come out of this is that we will begin to understand that the role of a governor is important, and the role of states is important, and all states are not the
Absolutely.
same, and that's
Absolutely.
important. And
Yep.
if we come out of this with the understanding that governors need to sort of work with the governors of states nearby, so if something like this comes up in the future, it will be possible to seal a state off. It will be able to say, look, there's no reason to shut down Oklahoma. There's no Ebola there, but we do want to make sure that the Texans, where there is some Ebola, aren't running back and forth across the border
Right. Yeah.
so there would be some sense of individual action going on, because really you cannot treat something like this where the case numbers are so different state to state. You can't treat it with a one size fits all, as
Right.
we're seeing now.
Which is the socialist model, right?
Which
Everything
is
is
the
the same.
socialist model.
One size fits all.
One size fits all, damn it.
Right. Yeah.
And if you don't fit the model, change yourself until you do.
Right. Or we'll
Okay.
send you to the re-education camp and until you learn how to do that.
Well,
Anyway.
Mr. Bardwick, it's been wonderful having a summit with you, and we'll do this
Yeah.
again real soon.
Thank you, Dave.
Have a great day.
You too.